Lots of cheques. Big fat one from Tim Cowley.
With the signature in my blood. Looks good. I might even take the day off.
After last night, you may have to.
I had 2 hours sleep. I brought the rest of them onto the early plane.
I'm glad I missed that part. I thought Swiss bankers were supposed to be staid and conservative. That's what they get up to when they come out of the mountains. Give me the lectures that I'm used to.
Makes a change from yodeling.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Morning.
Oh, good morning. I put a note on your desk about a Miss Greensmith.
Yeah, I saw it out of one eye. Your godmother.
Yes. I wonder if I could talk to you about it.
Well, I've had a look at it. If we can prove greater hardship, we can book the sitting tenant out and Miss Greensmith can have her house back. It's not complicated.
Well, I think it may be. She's a very proud and independent old lady.
They don't write songs like that anymore.
No, David, do listen. Father can't do anything with her.
And count me out. I'm not Solomon.
Well, I'm very fond of her. I don't like admitting this, but I don't think I'm competent to do what she wants me to do.
Now, look, don't give up before you start. Have a word with Peter Findon about it. He's handled quite a few of these. Any more snags? Just shout.
Thank you very much.
There's a Mr. Cheever outside. He wants to see you urgently.
Who the hell's Cheever?
Godfrey Allen's accountant.
Oh, that Cheever. Trouble.
Want me to talk to him?
I don't think so, thanks. Not unless you like octopus for breakfast. Tell him 5 minutes.
Can I get you some tea, Mr. Cheever?
No, thank you, young lady. I'm here on business, not refreshment.
Mr. Maine won't be very long.
Oh, my dear David, how very nice to see you again. Goodness, you're looking well.
Well, I feel like Tutankhamun.
Oh, well, you don't look it, my dear boy. I want to talk to you about Godfrey Allen.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Oh, have you seen him lately?
No, thank God. The last job we did for him was when he bought his famous factory. Is he a millionaire yet?
No, Godfrey is a very ambitious young man. You can't blame him for that.
I blame him for the speed that deal got pushed through at. And you encouraged him. I wouldn't have bought a pair of socks in the time he wanted us to take over that transaction.
Sometimes you have to act very quickly in business, and the law's a slow process.
It's also a safe one. Look, I know what accountants think of solicitors, all stamp-clicking and keep a beady eye on the commas.
Oh, come along, David. You misunderstand me. I have the utmost respect for your profession.
No, you should have. You tried to take on enough of his work.
It's the modern world, efficiency, all-purpose office. Did Godfrey ever write you ending your association?
Oh, yes, and a quibble about the bill.
I see. Well, I'm very much obliged to you for giving me your time. Thank you very much indeed.
So, tell me what it's about.
Well, it's just a detail, a courtesy call on this. Just wanted to establish our respective professional positions, that's all. Thank you again.
Peter, about a year ago, a client of ours called Godfrey Allen bought a controlling interest in an engineering firm called Zalco. I want you to drop everything, check on it.
Easy. There's a piece of the Financial Times this morning. Well, it was here a few minutes ago.
What did it say?
There's an injunction against them. They've had to stop production. They're infringing an American patent. What's it got to do with us?
I don't know. I wish I did. Well, there went my day off. Oh, Sarah, give me the stuff on Godfrey Allen and Zalco.
All of it, that great pile in the basement.
Yep, we did full surveys, planning for the area, land usage, the lot. And I paid for it. I won the whole bundle.
3 bundles. I may strip to the waist.
Oh, I'll tell the caretaker. He can applaud.
And me.
Well, make some phone calls to our city friends, will you? See what we can dig up on Zalco. And ring the bank as well. Make it a formal status inquiry.
Well, if you say so. But why?
Instinct. I don't trust Allen or Cheever. Or courtesy calls.
Sorry.
Oh, there you are, Margaret. Are you ready?
Oh, Aunt Alice.
I've told Mr. Bristow we're coming.
Oh, Aunt Alice, I'd like you to meet Peter Findon. I think we should talk to him first.
Oh, I'm sure that won't be necessary. I'm sure you're a very capable young man. And my cousin Henry thinks very highly of your other young man, Mr. Maine. But I'd rather deal with Margaret. She understands. Come along, my dear.
Miss, would you ring for a taxi for me, please?
Now, you're not to be extravagant. There's a perfectly good bus service.
It's a professional expense, Aunt Alice.
As one very capable young man to another, I'd say the last thing we need right now is a chunk of the Forsyth saga. Let's concentrate on Godfrey Allen and Zalto.
What's the story on him?
I handled Godfrey Allen's investments for 3 years. He thinks being greedy makes him a business genius. He thinks all he has to do is buy a Rolls with a telephone in it to make a fortune. He was one client I was glad to lose.
Did you advise him to buy into Zalco?
Yeah, not likely. I wouldn't have touched it with counterfeit money.
I've taken legal advice on the position of Zalco, Godfrey, and as your accountant, I can only advise you to follow it. There's no doubt we are infringing American patent. Production must therefore stop or will be hammered for massive damages. This is the opinion of leading counsel. Now, the next step is to sell up and salvage all that we can before the news gets round. The bank's already told me they're putting in a receiver.
You mean we're broke? I put £40,000 into this stinking business, and what am I left with? Nothing.
All you put in was money. Zalco's 10 years of my life.
And I was stupid enough to listen to you. Expand, you said. We'll all make $1 million, you said.
You were pretty bloody keen to buy in. You couldn't get the deal through fast enough. You bought 60% of a good business for peanuts. I'm the mug. What have you done since? Company house, company car, company expense accounts. A day's work would kill you. Godfrey Allen, the big businessman. You couldn't have run a game of blow football, so you can keep quiet while we get this thing settled.
Now look here.
Gentlemen, please.
Mr. Cheever.
Yesterday we had a business worth £60,000.
40,000 of it mine.
If we stop production now and the receiver is put in, I can satisfy the creditors.
Then how much do we owe?
At the worst, about 5,000. There are some personal guarantees.
Nothing left for the shareholders, which means me.
If we keep running, we'll extend our debts at the rate of £3,000 a week.
I'll get back to the factory and close it. You do what you've got to do, Mr. Cheever. And if you hear of any good jobs for engineers, just let me know.
I notice you're not consulting me.
Why don't you stop thinking you're Donald Stokes and grow up?
You've got to admire Stuart. He's taking it very well.
Oh, easy to do with somebody else's money. Besides, all he needs is a set of machine tools and he's happy. It's about all he's bloody got. At least he can make a living with them, which is more than I can. What am I going to do?
Except that you've made up... that an unwise investment has been made.
Oh, there's got to be something. If only I hadn't listened to Stuart. He's not a businessman, he's a grease monkey.
I don't think it was Stuart's fault.
Well, it certainly wasn't mine, and your figures were all right. David Maine should never have let me go into this.
He admitted this morning the vending agreement was rushed through.
Oh?
It was one of the reasons I had for calling on him.
Well, he should have stopped it. He should have known better.
And he was handling your investments at the time.
That's what he called it.
Godfrey, I'm your accountant, not a solicitor. And our association only dates back from the Zalco purchase, but I would have thought that you had had a fairly strong case for negligence.
It's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea at all.
And he's insured, isn't he? All professional men are insured against something like this.
Yes, of course they are.
You better be very assured of your facts.
Don't worry about me. I've been around long enough to get my facts straight.
Speaking as a friend, I'd hate to see you lose that much money.
Negligence. Yes, Maine's always acted so bloody clever. Wait till he finds out I'm going to sue him for £40,000.
Morning.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Bristow. This is my goddaughter, Margaret. She's a solicitor.
Is she now?
We're here to see if we can reach some sort of a settlement. Miss Greensmith owns this house.
And I've paid the rent regularly for 15 years.
But there aren't any complaints about that. The point is that Miss Greensmith now needs the house to live in.
Well, she can't have it, can she? We're good tenants. We've looked after the place. And I've done all my own decorating.
I should think so. With a rent of 27 shillings a week, I certainly haven't got the money to do it.
Nobody's ever asked you to do it.
The point is that Miss Greensmith has nowhere to live.
Well, I'm sorry about that. But if we move out, we won't have anywhere to live either, will we?
Mr. Bristow, you have 2 sons who are working and your wife has a part-time job. Surely you could think about buying a house. Miss Greensmith is prepared to give you a reasonable amount of time.
This is controlled property. We're sitting tenants.
But it is her house, Mr. Bristow. It belongs to her.
I can't help that. Did you say you were a solicitor?
That's right.
Yeah, the way things are going, I'd better get one myself, hadn't I?
I would think that's the best thing you could do, Mr. Bristow.
You keep your advice for the old lady, miss. I'll look after myself.
I shall go to law if I have to, Mr. Bristow. I'd rather not. But the laws were made for my protection.
And mine. I know my rights.
I can give you a full statement of the financial position, Mr. Chapman. The loss sustained here by Mr. Allen is considerable.
If we're going to sue your previous solicitor, I shall need to know a little more than that.
Yes, of course you will. That's why I came to your firm. Solid, respectable, old-established solicitors. I've been bitten once by these bright boy lawyers. I don't intend to let it happen again.
Nevertheless, a suit for negligence of this order is a very serious matter indeed. Now, you say that David Main was retained by you to give investment advice for a period of 3 years.
That's right.
And during this time, his advice was sound?
Well, I was a bit slow sometimes. Still, a couple of his property deals gave me 100% profit, so I didn't mind.
Then you invested your total capital in a firm called Zalco. Was this on Main's advice? Mr. Allen?
Well, yes. Oh, for God's sake, that's what I was paying him for.
Yes, and Main was responsible for the vending agreement?
Well, yes, of course. Of course he was.
The papers are here somewhere, Godfrey.
I take it the usual inquiries were made into the patent position and so on.
Well, I don't know. I suppose so.
Well, that is the normal procedure.
Well, do we have a case or don't we?
It would seem so.
Well, then why don't you ring up Main and tell him?
If I'm going to take this case, your claim will have to be set out very clearly in a formal letter.
And how long will that take? There are 2 or 3 deals I could use this money for.
If you let me have the documents, I can prepare the letter today, send it round by hand.
Right.
My secretary has the files for you. I think you'll find everything is there.
Perhaps you'd let me be the judge of that, Mr. Cheever. I wouldn't attempt to advise you on accountancy problems.
I know exactly what your father thinks about the situation. I appreciate his motives, but I want to be independent. I have £1,100 in a building society, and my rents from 3 houses come to £4 1 shilling a week. There are a good many people a great deal worse off.
And it's costing you £13 a week for an attic room in a run-down hotel.
And that's only temporary. As soon as I get into my own house, I shall be able to budget properly.
If you get into your own house.
I have complete faith in English justice. Surely any judge who isn't blind can see I'm entitled to live there. That's why my father bought the houses in 1918, to provide security for his daughter. I must say, this is quite a treat. Do you think I could have one of those little cakes?
Yes, of course you can.
This has just come for you.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Chapman Hunter and Palfrey lashing out a bit, and they making deliveries by hand. Well, they had too much dignity to be in a hurry. Get me Mr. Chapman.
Yes, Mr. Main.
Alan didn't even bother to look at most of it.
Hurry up, Chris.
Mr. Chapman, please. David Main for you, sir.
Chapman, David Main. I've just received a letter from you. It's either a practical joke or you're insane. What? Well, on this one, Chapman, you better do more than think. You better be very, very sure. Come in for a moment, please. Sarah, please bring a book. Peter, I'd like you to listen to this. I want you to write to our insurance company. Robin Zaphus is the man. Dear Robin, I'm bound by the terms of my policy to inform you that a claim has been made upon this practice, alleging professional negligence. I have been asked to admit liability to the sum of £40,000 and to indemnify a Mr. Godfrey Allen in respect of this amount. Failure to comply with this will result in proceedings being taken. Paragraph. I have no intention of making such an admission or invoking the terms of my policy. I intend to contest this allegation with every means of my disposal.
Well, I could understand this if it came from someone like Gilbert Elmond. But Chapman's dead straight.
Rule 1. A solicitor acts on what his client tells him. Godfrey Allen swears he bought Zalco on my advice, which makes Godfrey Allen a greedy, vicious liar.
Well, all we've got to do is prove it.
I'll prove it. I'll break Allen. I'd do it if I wrecked this office in that process.
My client is extremely clear as to the facts, and these are substantiated by his accountant.
Let me tell you about your client. 5 years ago, he inherited £100,000. After 2 years and a mistaken belief in his own financial expertise, this sum was reduced to £20,000. Over 3 years, and acting on my advice, he doubled this sum, and then he invested the entire £40,000 into Zalco.
Was this on your advice?
No, categorically.
My client claims otherwise. He says that you recommended the transaction.
Then your client is lying.
Do you admit that the vending agreement was, to say the least, rushed?
On your client's insistence, I made 4 telephone calls trying to talk him out of it.
I find that extremely interesting in view of what my client says.
If your client had a dozen grandmothers, he'd sell each and every one of them to the highest bidder and then boast about the profit.
I'd rather we didn't let personal feelings enter into this, Maine. I've looked through all the correspondence. If you felt so strongly that this investment was unwise, I would have thought it prudent to put such an opinion in writing. Now, we can find no such letter. Did you, in fact, write such a letter?
No.
I see.
You know as well as I do, verbal instructions are given or taken half a dozen times a day, on a basis of trust and integrity on both sides.
In my personal opinion, Maine, you take on too much work across too wide an area with too little attention to detail. Now, if I were you, I'd get on to my insurance company and settle. You took a risk, and it didn't work.
I did not take a risk because I did not at any time advise Godfrey Allen to invest in Zalco.
Well, you must permit me to give my client the benefit of any doubt. That is the way I prefer to run a practice. You might do well to follow the example.
If we're being personal, you might like my opinion of you. Solicitors of your stripe should be stuffed and put on display as an example of how the law worked 50 years ago.
I find that offensive and unnecessary.
That's precisely how I find your advice on how to run my practice. Your client, Godfrey Allen, is not only a liar, but a vicious liar. You're dealing here with deceit, stupidity, and greed, and you're condoning all three.
I don't see any point in continuing this type of conversation.
I intend to fight this case, and I intend to win. I expect there to be blood all over the courtroom, and I assure you it'll be Godfrey Allen's, not mine. Good day, Mr. Chapman.
No.
I never thought I'd say anything like this, David, but I don't think you can win.
I don't think so either. But I've never been sued for negligence before. One thing's sure. If I make an insurance claim for £40,000, there isn't a company in this country that'll give me a policy in future. Once it gets round, I've been sued for lousy advice. The stampede of my clients looking for other solicitors will stop the traffic for a week. And you saw Chapman. I'm on a high wire, and I know it. Just half this profession is itching for me to fall off onto my skull.
I saw Charlie Chaplin leave. Looked as if his socks were on fire.
Yeah, well, I was rude to him. It didn't do any good, but it made me feel better.
Well, here's the recent stuff on Zalgo. 2 production buildings, small office block, automatic processes, labor force of about 23. Never heard of the address.
Yeah, it's stuck with the road end somewhere in the West Country. As an industrial site, worthless. Acres of scrubland, miles from anywhere.
Any housing value?
2 applications for planning consent, both turned down. It's on alluvial land. Still subject to flooding. There's a river 2 miles away.
So?
It's just a thought and a phone call to a civil engineer.
Well, it's your sixpence. What are the balance sheets like?
Now, Chapman showed me the figures. Shares are worthless. Zalco owes about £5,000.
White elephants will now form a queue on the right.
Thanks a lot, Peter.
Oh, look here, David. Why don't you settle? We can clean up the mess afterwards. They're going to nail down the lid and bury you.
Yeah, well, don't order the flowers just yet. Let's go down to Zalco and have a look.
Why?
Because I can't think of anything else. There might be something.
Well, if you say so. But what about Margaret and the little old lady?
No, come on, Peter. First things first. No, you're right. She's just beginning to trust us. You, put your flimsy night dress in a carrier bag. We're off to the West Country. You're going to have to fend everybody off, Peter. If there are any panics, phone Sidney. You come back off his flower show holiday. I'll see you at the house at about 2.
I feel like a garrison commander in one of those Foreign Legion outposts, waiting for the Bedouin to come and slit my throat.
You don't think David can do anything?
He hasn't got a prayer.
Well, I don't know about negligence. You're certainly starting to look neglected.
Yes, Jeeves.
No, I mean it. You'll get nowhere looking scruffy, you know.
Provided I nail that bastard Godfrey Allen, I don't mind if I got a beard under my feet. Julia, I didn't come round for a fast valet service. I want a list of outstanding bills, some account statements, and where we stand on those bloody endowment policies.
But if you're fighting Alan, surely the practice will finance it.
The practice is me.
This isn't like you. You're too involved, too angry.
Frightened, you mean?
You?
Oh, yes. It's the first crack in the dike, and I don't know how to plug it. And if I can't, everybody will start to worry. The Arkwrights, the Cowleys, the Castletons. How safe's their money if a liar can chisel me out of 40,000? What safeguards have they got if no insurance company in town will touch me?
Prove that Godfrey Allen's lying.
And they all lived happily ever after. I can't prove it. I've got no correspondence, no witnesses, nothing.
Go to the Law Society.
What for? It's none of their business. It's a civil action for negligence. It's sloppiness, not professional misconduct.
Well, what about Ernest Lang? Look, ask Peter to handle it. Well, if you won't, you're being stupid as well as stubborn.
I know the law. They'll nod wisely and advise me to settle.
Well, do that. You can start again at the beginning.
Middle-aged wonder boy makes a comeback.
You could do it, you know. If you'd let people help you. If you'd start now.
Julia, we all have professional nightmares about negligence, about liars and helplessness. Have you ever heard of anybody sharing a nightmare?
Yes, I have. But nobody like you. You won't accept help. You won't admit to weakness. You think that failure is some sort of disease.
I've told you it's a crack in the dike. And it's my confidence in me as well. If some 10th-rate conman like Allen can break me on a basis of simple injustice, I've got no business being in law.
Oh, that's perfectionism gone mad. Haven't you ever heard of accidents?
Yeah, don't look now. This is me swimming for the lifeboat. Well, that'll be Sarah. I better go.
The ever-faithful Miss Courtney, secretary and shield-bearer. I thought you said you weren't accepting any help.
Miss Courtney has a driving license and a notebook.
Well, there's a perfectly good train service. I said help. Perhaps I meant comfort.
Yeah, I'm not very good at accepting that either. And you should know.
I hope you both have a very successful journey.
Thanks.
We've served Bristow with a notice to quit. That was 5 weeks ago. Our next step is to issue a summons.
Will that cost a lot of money?
Oh, I don't think you need to worry about that.
Oh, but I must. I don't want to go in for anything I can't pay for.
It won't be for very much, Miss Greensmith.
I shall have to go to court. I don't think I like that.
Oh, it's not really so very terrifying. It's a bit like being back at school. Hard seats, important voices, the occasional stern look. I'll come along and hold your hand.
Really? Young man.
I'll let you know, Aunt Alice. It'll be in the county court. Now, don't worry.
Goodbye, my dear.
Bye-bye, Aunt Alice.
I'll see you out, Miss Greensmith.
Well, don't look so worried. It all seems simple enough.
Might go to you. Aunt Alice expects me to stand up in court and plead. It's something I've never done.
Well, there's nothing to it. Get the facts right, slot in the emotions, and go into the proper. You mean you've really never done it?
My father had very fixed ideas about a woman's place, seen and not heard, even when that woman was a qualified solicitor. Besides, there's this.
Come on, I'll buy you some of David's private drink.
Well, if Chapman won't hurry it up, I'll find one of these legal boys who will. I don't like to think of good money just sitting there doing nothing.
If you're thinking of that property deal in Glasgow, they'll wait for a week or so.
No. Hit him now while we've got the chance.
That's what happened when you bought into Zelka.
Well, it worked, didn't it? The way things were then, Stuart could have raised the money anywhere, so I got in quickly and got a fat piece of the action. It's the way I work. What do you think about publicity for this negligence suit?
Not very much.
Oh, I don't know.
Why the hell anyone would want to put a factory at the backside of beyond escapes me. It's not even a crafty peasant we can ask. Oh, it's not a bit of good you being in a trance. Unless, of course, you want to spend the night leaning against the car.
Oh, sorry, I was listening to the birds.
Now I've heard everything.
Oh, I'm just a country boy at heart. But if I had to pick the last place in England to site a factory, this would be it.
What are we looking for, anyway?
I don't know, love. Inspiration, a lever, an angle.
I'd settle for a country pub with cold beer, fake horse brasses, feather beds and deep frozen Cornish pasty.
Buy the feather bed bit, single or double.
Don't kid yourself, David. You're a single bed man by choice. Anything else means sharing. And you're on your own. Fences up, gates locked, trespassers will be prosecuted.
Some of the time, yes.
And the other times are on your choice. Doesn't work like that.
You sound quite an expert.
I am. I've heard most of the propositions. There's the characters in need of comfort who miss their mothers, the ego boys who use sex as a mirror, the badge collectors who keep a list and a scorecard for performances, the rugger players who think it's a one-man scrimmage with me as the ball, even the hypochondriacs who think it's good for them.
And where do I fit in?
Now, at this moment, I classify you as one of the aspirin takers. You've got business worries and you think a four-poster bed is as good a way as any of forgetting them. I honestly don't think it'll help, David. Not now. So let's just find a frozen pasty and you can work your energies off on that.
You sound like a police witness. Time, place, motive. One day I'll get all three right.
You think?
I'm sure.
You Tarzan, me Jane.
I don't see why your father should forbid you to carry on with the Greensmith case. Doesn't make sense.
2 reasons. He doesn't think I'm competent to handle it, and it offends his sense of family responsibility. Well, he's written to Aunt Alice as good as told her to come back to Leeds. Goodness knows the house is big enough she can look after him.
Sounds reasonable.
Yes, it would to a man. Now, Aunt Alice has been a nurse companion for something like 30 years. Well, she's a bit sick of looking after other people. All she wants is a little independence, somewhere where she can please herself.
She won't have the money, will she?
Oh, she'd manage. No, the money wouldn't worry her. Any more than it would worry me. She's entitled to her own life. I'd like to help her to get it.
Fighting your own battles? By proxy?
It's a fair assessment.
Well, it's nothing to do with me. But I don't think it'll work.
You sound very sure of that.
I am. Hell, I'm living proof of it. You fight your own battles along your own roads. It takes time and adjustment, some knowledge, and some humiliation. Once I was a barrister with a pretty wig and flowing robes, all the pomp and majesty of the law. Now, I'm an articled clerk whose expensive tastes are paid for by his wife. Grit your teeth and soldier. In 5 years' time, I'll be where David Main is now.
Long time.
That's what I mean. You're in the same boat. Oh, don't worry about the patter for Miss Greensmith. I'll knock you out a plea that'll make you sound like Norman Burke. As a soprano, of course.
Hello?
There's no one here. Factory's closed.
I know that, but I don't think Mr. Allen or Mr. Stewart would mind if I had a look around.
Well, they didn't say anything to me about it. Are you wanting to buy the place?
I just want to look round.
Well, if you know Mr. Allen, I suppose it'll be all right.
Good. See you now.
Have you worked here long?
5 years. Used to do maintenance. I reckon it's all Allen's fault. Big ideas and don't get your hands dirty. They say Mr. Stewart's got another job up north. Of course, he can't start another business, you know. Not now he's broke. That receiver chap's paying my wages.
You must get pretty fed up just sitting here.
Well, it's better than the dole.
Well, if you've got an hour, we could arrange a little private enterprise. I want somebody to dig a few holes.
Oh, I don't think I can do that.
Fiver? Now, you can be the watchman for a bit. If you're any good at it, I'll buy you a coke fire.
I'm aware of the urgency of your business affairs, Mr. Allen, but I must remind you that the law is not an urgent process.
I wouldn't put it past Maine to fight a delaying action.
In this case, he'd be wasting his own valuable time. I'm reasonably confident of the outcome. I have full statements from yourself and Mr. Allen. As far as I can see, the rest is a formality.
David, what is all this about? Are you digging for gold or what?
Yeah, sort of.
Near a river?
It depends what you mean by gold. The only thing I know about besides law is people. And one of the things that I love about greedy people is the limited outlook. Just like Godfrey Allen, where his nose ends, pound notes begin, and he can't take the trouble to see any farther. He won't think and work and calculate. Well, I will. I'm now going to walk all over him until my feet get tired. Then I'm going to take a small rest and walk all over him again. Don't worry, you'll get your chance.
Oh, Chapman telephone.
Yes?
If we aren't prepared to make a settlement with Allen, either us or the insurance company is going to send papers down to council.
That's a lot of hurry for Chapman.
Perhaps he's just trying to prove he isn't stuffed. Anyway, how's the trip? Any good?
It depends. If you like gambling, very good indeed. If not, you better take a sedative. We're going to buy Zalco.
You must be lightheaded from all that fresh air. Buy Zalco?
Just as cheaply as we can. You remember the company we set up with the peculiar initials?
Oh, you mean IOL, the original shell job?
That's it. As I remember, I'm not a director. Coffee, sir. If I am, get a letter written. I'm resigning now. I want you to get over to the receiver put in by Zalco's creditors, offer him £8,000 for the company and its tax losses.
Well, if you say so. I suppose the shareholders are better off with 8,000 than nothing.
But there are only two shareholders, Stuart and Godfrey Allen.
Oh, George Washington himself. Oh, yes, I should think he'll accept.
Right, fast as you can, Peter. Sit on the doorstep till the deal's through. Take the company seal, the rest of the junk.
I promised Margaret I'd go down to the county court with her.
If Margaret wants an officer to come back to you, better get out and buy Zalco. I'll explain to her.
Oh, Pris, get me all that stuff on IOL, will you? Quickly, please.
Yes, Herr Director.
Less cheek or I'll steal your tin of biscuits.
As long as I've known you, you've had a 100% record of knowing what you're doing.
Yes, I know, a mixture of luck and low cunning.
I do hope you're sure on this one.
I'd better be, because I want you to get out of the country life gear, go down to my bank. Now, Basil Henry's the man to see. You're going to be sweet and charming and earnest, and you're going to raise £13,000.
On what?
My house in Chelsea.
I've lived in this house for 15 years. Kept it in good order, put in a new bathroom and looked after it. There's me, the wife, and my two boys. The eldest gets married next year and he'll live with us for a bit until the council find him a place.
And you have in fact looked for alternative accommodation?
Council won't take us on. They say the waiting list is full already. Besides, the rents they charge are getting a bit steep. And you know as well as I do, There aren't many houses to rent these days. You should have seen the place I'm in when I took it over.
Mr. Bristow, have you thought of buying a property in the area?
Oh, we did once, yes, but I can't afford the sort of prices they're asking now.
I would be interested in a statement of your means and income, Mr. Bristow. I presume both your sons are working?
That's right, Your Honour, both in good jobs.
Do Mr. Bristow now produce a statement of means? There's a total net income of the order of £45 a week.
Yeah, Richard, I know you can't give me an answer right away, but I've sent the surveys to you. I've been round the area. It has to be all right. What? No, there's no planning problems. There's a factory there. It's site zoned for industrial use. Just give me the going rate. Yes, I know you have to be careful. I see. Yes, if the deposits are any good. So I can work to a figure of 100,000. Fine, Richard. Yes, I'll let you have first offer. Bye. How was Basil? He swooned? He pressed the money on you and used £1 notes?
Basil has said that the bank can't accept your house as security.
Well, why not? Well, it's worth about 30,000.
Well, this is what I don't understand. He said for the last 3 months there's been a Class F caution on it.
Oh, no, she wouldn't do that. Not to me.
What's a Class F caution?
It's something a wife uses if there's likely to be a dispute over the matrimonial home. She puts a Class F caution into the registry, which means that anybody who buys the property or lends money onto is lumbered with her in possession. Which gives me a house worth 30,000 with about as much collateral value as an old jam jar. All right, Sarah. Thanks anyway. I'll handle it.
David, this is one thing more than anything else which is absolutely none of my business. But I do have connections, and if this Zalco deal's any sort of investment, I could probably raise the money for you.
Why should you?
Because you're in trouble and I'd like to help.
Well, let me try it on my own first.
As usual.
But thanks. And I mean that.
Greensmith derives an income of 27 shillings per week from the house occupied by Mr. Bristow. External upkeep can absorb, in some years, almost the whole of this amount. She's not entitled to a state pension. Now, my client has no wish to become a charge upon the state, and given occupancy of suitable living accommodation, is prepared to accept help from other members of the family. This is my case, Your Honour, that greater hardship will be suffered by Miss Greensmith than by Mr. Bristow, should she not succeed in obtaining possession of her own house.
Julia, will you please stop fiddling with that junk and listen?
I'm listening.
Look, this is important. If you're going to do a Judas on me, at least put the garlic press away.
Life goes on, David. I had 5 people coming round for dinner, and the world still doesn't revolve around your office and its problems.
It does for me, especially now.
It always has, so I'd rather spread the load. When you have the coronary you seem determined to get, I intend to have a few friends around for sympathy. I don't want to leave my own life. I wish you'd realize that. But if I have to, I'm going to work at it. I played Penelope for a long time, sitting with my loom through some pretty lonely evenings. I complained, I argued, and I wept, and none of it did any good. Your friends, if you still have any, probably think I'm a bitch. Mine are even worse, they're just sorry for me. That's why I go on seeing them. From my little halfway house. Neither a married woman nor a spinster. Too much in love with you to put my wedding ring away in the box. Not enough in love with you to bear the state you're in now.
At what state? I'm doing my job. I'm trying to keep the practice together. Julia, I've got people like Cheever and Allen sharpening knives on my throat, and the last thing I need is for you to join them. Why did you put a land charge on the house?
I took legal advice, just like you've always told me to.
But do you know what you've done? You've taken the one step that could probably ruin me.
Probably. What if we are ruined?
Oh, you know damn well I'll finish begin again.
But that's just the point. Where would you live? I don't see you in a Salvation Army hostel.
Well, what's that supposed to mean?
If we're ruined, I should like to keep a roof over my children's heads.
Oh, God, no, not the Victorian bit. You'll be wearing a shawl next and standing in pub doorways.
I should also like to keep a roof over your head. I remember how you worked for this place. I remember how you looked the day we bought it. Grey and skinny and tired out of your mind. Proud of yourself. It's the first big thing you wanted, and I remember what it cost you. I won't let you throw it away now. I'm not being spiteful. It's a roof over your head as well. I can stand the name-calling, the Judas routine. I know what I'm doing, and I know why I'm doing it. And most of it's for you.
Sorry, love. I need the money. I'm in a panic.
All you have to do is say. All you have to do is ask. And you hate asking, don't you? Even now. Even from me. So tell me what to do. If you want a clear title to the house, you can have it. Just make sure you find a hostel with room for families.
In this case, Alice Elizabeth Greensmith is claiming possession of a house presently occupied by George Elbert Bristow. The claim is on the grounds of greater hardship. Now, the property is at present occupied by 4 adults, and the tenant has shown to my satisfaction that no alternative accommodation is available, either in regard to necessary proximity to the place of work or to similar rental. On the other hand, given the strong family ties shown to exist in the case of Miss Greensmith, it would seem that alternative accommodation is more readily available to her than to Mr. Bristow. I have the greatest possible sympathy for Miss Greensmith in this case. My sympathy is deepened by the disparity between the income received from this property and the intrinsic value of the house. Nevertheless, I feel in this case a greater hardship would be caused to Mr. Bristow by granting an order for possession than would be caused to Miss Greensmith by refusing to grant it. I repeat, I have the greatest possible sympathy for the plaintiff in this action, but I do not make the laws of this country, especially in respect of housing legislation. No, my task is merely to interpret and apply those laws. Having paid great attention to all the evidence called before me, I cannot find for the plaintiff. There will be judgment for the defendant, George Elbert Bristow. No order as to costs.
I'm sorry. Oh, Alice. You did your best, my dear. You're not to get upset.
The quicker we sign these, the better. Letters of resignation from you and Stewart. The share transfer.
Money for old rope.
Better than I expected. I knew we'd get some money for selling the company for tax loss purposes, but I thought it would take much longer than this.
That's the way to do business. Make decisions and get moving.
I'm a little worried about this IOL company. It isn't going through the usual vending agreement routine.
Sounds like a solicitor. Who needs the red tape?
Suppose so. Well, as soon as they've collected these, we shall receive a draft for 8,000, and we can forget Zelko.
Put it down to experience. My share of the 8,000 is profit, and I get my original investment back from David Main. Could have been a lot worse.
If we get the money from Main.
Well, that's as good as in the bank, old boy. Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Basil, I know how careful banks have to be. Well, thanks anyway. Bye. Well, that's the money.
And here's Zalka. I must say it's rather nice to go out and buy a company.
You've still got some work to do on it to get us clear of the receiver. But at least we own it, and it's watertight.
I still don't see what good it's going to do you.
You will.
I'm sorry. That's all I can say, and it's not enough. I'm sorry, and I'm sick, and I'm disgusted.
It's not your fault, but it does seem so unfair.
Yes, that's what sickens me. It is unfair. It's wrong and it's unjust. It's the law.
I keep thinking what my father would say. He used to say, put your money in property. It's safe there.
What will you do?
I don't know. I shall have to think.
I'd like to help, financially. I mean.
My dear, thank you. I know you mean well, but I'd rather not. You have your own life. I think I shall probably write to your father. If he still wants me to go to Leeds, I shall go.
But do you want to?
I don't have any choice. All I wanted was a little place of my own. I thought I'd have a cat. I've always been very fond of cats. I wanted to be on my own, and now I won't be. For 30 years I've been at someone else's beck and call. Surely that's enough.
Why did you ask Chapman to bring Godfrey Allen and Cheever with him?
Simple. Vindictiveness. And sometimes I get tired of being careful.
They should be here now.
I'd like you to stay, Peter. The last conversation I had with Mr. Allen needed a few witnesses.
I find this whole meeting most irregular, Maine. I would ask you not to be offensive as well.
I get a little tired of playing legal patacade, Chapman, so let's both give it a rest.
Give him the writ. Let him make up his mind whether he's going to settle or not. Let's collect our money and get out of here.
Same old Allen, same old mentality. A Cairo rug peddler on a bad day.
I'm not prepared to tolerate this sort of discussion. I'm instructed by my client, Mr. Allen, to make formal service of this writ, claiming damages for professional negligence on your part.
Your client couldn't give instructions of a tin of cat food, much less a case for negligence.
I don't bluff me, Maine. I put £40,000 into Zalco on your advice, and the company's just gone broke. Now, if that's not negligence, I don't know what is.
I believe you just sold your shares in it.
For a tax loss.
Peanuts. The company's worthless.
Well, I've news for you two financial tapeworms. Let it sink in and then choke on it. The shares which you have just sold in Zalco are worth something like £100,000.
Just kid me, Maine. I've forgotten more about business than you'll ever know.
Just a minute, Godfrey. Maine, I presume you have grounds for this preposterous statement.
I usually have. Share certificate showing the transfer of Zalco ownership to a firm called IOL. Confirmation that the Zalco site is exploitable for industrial use.
That's impossible.
Surveyors' reports show extensive deposits of gravel under the Zalco site and adjoining land on which it has options. And I now hold a contract with Billings Aggregate worth £100,000 for that land and those deposits. Should have looked a little further, Cheever. Taking your eye off the fast buck for a minute.
I don't believe you.
Ask your solicitor to check the documents. I'm sure he passed the Law Society exams.
This code of professional good manners you seem to have entirely forgotten.
Courtesy on these two barrow boys, I wouldn't waste the breath.
Because the facts as stated appear to be correct.
That doesn't make any difference. I still lost money.
Indeed you did. I'm singing and dancing about it.
And I can still sue you for negligence.
How? The company you used to own is now worth twice what you paid for it. You call that negligence?
I presume that you instigated this transaction, Maine?
Oh, yes. Very definitely.
I take the most serious possible view of what you've told me. I would say that your conduct calls for most stringent investigation by the Law Society.
Who will laugh at you? I took a normal commercial risk.
At least you won't deny there has been gross negligence in this case.
You may be right, but not on my part. Do you want some free advice? If I were you, and acting for Allen, which thank God I'm not on both counts, I'd dig around and find out who was really responsible for professional advice in this deal. And for my money, it's Cheever.
I was responsible only for the figures.
And the speed. Shouldn't have come to see me, you know. People like you always have a motive, either greed or self-preservation. Stick to accountancy, leave the law alone. And don't start to cheer up yet. He won't have put anything in writing either.
You are still avoiding, shiftily in my opinion, another highly important issue, which is gross professional misconduct on your part. Now, you bought Zalco on information provided by a client.
Allen is an ex-client, loud and dissatisfied in writing, and Zalco was investigated in my time at my expense.
Well, I still find it most irregular.
I'm sure you do. It's also very legal. And you would find Big Ben irregular if it didn't synchronize with your own office clock. Do you know what I enjoy most about this, Allen? A nice natural justice. If you come to me when Zalco ran into trouble, I'd have had to sort it out for you and you'd have made a profit. But no, you had to take a large chisel and start trying to use it. So now you can go away and bleed, and I can sit back and count your money. And I think I'll take the rest of the day off.